During my early and mid-20s, I found myself going out and drinking far too often. Each working week, I eagerly awaited Friday night, anticipating the chance to rock the town with my friends. However, everything shifted after a single summer night. My plan for the evening involved meeting my girlfriends at a nice local bar. It was fairly fancy, and its live music added to its charm. Preferring not to start the night solo, I bided my time until my friends made their entrance. Upon arrival, we placed our initial drink orders and sought out a cozy spot to gather and catch up. As the bar began to swell with its weakened crowd, the live band launched into their set indoors. Despite the enticing music, we opted to relocate to the quieter outdoor patio to carry on our conversation with drinks in hand. With my first drink consumed and another one ready, I couldn't help but notice a charming guy who had been casting glances in my direction for the past hour. I reciprocated with occasional smiles, hoping to initiate some form of connection. Fortunately, he mustered the courage to approach and introduce himself as Lance. My friends, recognizing his interest in me, began teasing him playfully, perhaps to encourage his interest in me. Their efforts paid off, as he eventually offered to buy me a drink, a gesture I graciously accepted. Lance introduced me to another guy he had met earlier that evening while bar hopping, marking this the third bar they had visited. The man, Robert, despite claiming sorta awkwardly and out of nowhere he was 28, seemed considerably older, perhaps in his late 40s. However, I didn't dwell on it too much, as my focus was on getting to know Lance better. As the night progressed, the alcohol began to take effect, and I could feel the buzz setting in. Despite having developed a high tolerance, I was aware that pacing myself would be crucial if I intended to stay out late. However, Lance and Robert were persistent in their efforts to buy more drinks for us, making it difficult to resist the allure of free alcohol. The live band's music was growing more captivating, and I felt a strong desire to dance with Lance. However, when he excused himself to use the bathroom, I found myself entranced by the music alone. It was then that Robert approached me, offering a drink he claimed I had forgotten. Struggling to hear him over the music, I thanked him and resumed dancing while waiting for Lance. The music pulsed through the air, luring me into a trance as I took another sip of my drink. The dance floor teemed with energy, with more and more people joining in around me. Sensing a vibration, I fumbled for my phone, but the glare of the screen made it impossible to read. Struggling to unlock my phone and check the notification, I found myself succumbing to a sudden blackout. Gradually, I began to regain consciousness, feeling disoriented and dizzy. As awareness slowly returned, I found myself lying on a cold cement floor in complete darkness. My hands were bound behind me by rope, cloth tied around my mouth to mute my screams. Slowly standing up, I quickly realized the alcohol still had a strong hold on me. My vision remained hazy, and I struggled to make out my surroundings. The only source of light was a dim glow filtering through a small clouded window, barely illuminating the desolate basement. "Hello?" I muffled out into the still darkness, terrified to hear any response back though. The floor felt very cold as my shoes had been taken. Luckily, I was clothed otherwise. I cautiously searched around in the dark, trying to spot any source of light or weapon to arm myself with while frightful tears started to accumulate. Shivering from the biting cold and in a state of confusion, I watched as a door swung open, flooding the room with a subtle light. A silhouette emerged, gradually taking shape as the figure drew nearer. To my dismay, it was unmistakably Robert, the man from the bar. I attempted to scream through the gag, but fell silent when the light bulb flickered to life, flooding the room with brightness. "Emma," the man's voice called out, and as the room became well lit, I gazed at Robert, who wore a repulsive glare and grin. Balancing a hammer in one hand and his phone pointed towards me in another, he spoke in a sinister tone. "Are you frightened, Emma?" Dread filled his words as I instinctively sought to distance myself from him, muffling any pleas in a desperate attempt to protect myself. The faint rumble of a passing car, accompanied by the soft thump of bass from its music, hinted we were most likely in a nearby neighborhood. My sole focus became reaching the door and evading the man before me. "I asked you, are you frightened, Emma?" He taunted again, his words tinged with a drunken laugh. Despite his stumbling steps, he pressed on towards me, his sinister smile never fading. I skirted around him, keeping a cautious distance, our eyes meeting in a chilling exchange. With the gag around my mouth beginning to loosen, I wasted no time in using my jaw to remove it, feeling a wave of relief wash over me as the pressure subsided. In a frantic bid for help, I unleashed a primal scream, the sound piercing the quiet night in hopes of alerting anyone nearby. Robert's reaction was immediate, his confidence shattered as he dropped his phone, his expression morphing from assurance to worry. In a split decision, I darted towards the door as Robert's gaze was momentarily fixed on his dropped phone. With a surge of adrenaline propelling me forward, I swiftly maneuvered past him in my frantic bid for freedom. Fueled by an instinctual urge to protect myself, I found myself in a frenzied state, resorting to biting his face as he attempted to grapple me, ultimately forcing him to release his grip and allowing me to break free. My cries filled the empty house as I raced through its corridors, desperately seeking an exit to the outside world. The sound of Robert's swift pursuit spurred me on as I finally spotted the front door. Peering through the windows, I realized a surge of relief as we were in a residential neighborhood. With my hand gripping the door handle tightly, I turned it with determination and swung the door open, fully intending to spring out to safety. Yet, just as I was about to step outside, Robert's hand snatched me once more, halting my escape. Despite his grip, I continued to thrash, kick, and scream, resorting to anything to fend him off. Moments later, his hold suddenly loosened, and he broke into a run. Confusion momentarily overwhelmed me as I processed the sudden turn of events. It quickly dawned on me that he must have been spooked by the increasing amount of front lights from the neighboring homes turning on, fearing he would be caught. Without hesitation, I resumed screaming for help, my voice ringing out into the night as Robert dashed towards a truck parked on the street. In a flash, what I assume was Robert's truck sprang to life, its headlights cutting through the darkness as he sped away from the area. As the neighbors from the house across the street emerged to investigate, I stepped into the yard, my hands still bound, but my spirits lifted by the knowledge that the terrifying ordeal was over. Nearby residents began to converge, offering support and assistance in the aftermath of the alarming event. Months later, as the memories of the traumatic event began to fade from my mind, I received a chilling message. The video Robert had taken of me in the basement, sent from an anonymous source. It served as a haunting reminder of the danger I had narrowly escaped that night. Let's rewind to 1991 when I was merely 14 years old, living in a small town just outside Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Life in our little corner of the world was quiet, but I always found ways to entertain myself. Over the course of 3 to 4 years, a handful of friends and I dedicated ourselves to crafting a notably impressive treehouse. While the passage of time may have magnified its splendor, it gave us a secluded retreat away from home where we could enjoy our privacy. Nestled amidst a vast cornfield that seemed to stretch endlessly into the horizon, our treehouse was a hidden gem, accessed only after a long journey through towering corn stalks. It stood solitary, requiring approximately 10 minutes of navigating through the maze. One late evening, I found myself journeying to the treehouse to meet up with my friend Mitch and tackle some homework. As I navigated through the dense and seemingly infinite cornfield with flashlight in hand, as it was twilight and quickly getting dark, I couldn't help but notice how tall and imposing the corn had become, particularly at this point in the season when it had reached its full height. In about a month's time, sections of this field would be designated for Halloween corn mazes. Upon stepping into the clear patch where our treehouse stood, I observed the absence of light inside, indicating that I had arrived before Mitch. I proceeded to tidy up my belongings inside the treehouse and make some random repairs to various sections of our makeshift place. However, my efforts were interrupted by a sudden, jarring thud against the wall, causing me to jump out of my skin with fright. Holding my breath, I focused on the section of the wall where the noise had come from, assuming it was Mitch. I hurried to the window and called out to him, but there was no answer. Within seconds, a corn cob was hurled in my direction, originating from the dark corn stalks below, striking the wall once more. With a loud yell, I urged Mitch to stop messing around, but my words were only met with the ongoing sounds of nocturnal creatures. My apprehension eased as I caught sight of a distant light amidst the cornfield, signaling Mitch's approach. Just as I was about to grab my flashlight, terror seized me as the night was pierced by the shrill scream of a woman emanating from the cornfield, followed by the impact of yet another corn cob hitting the wall. Directing my flashlight towards the sounds, I witnessed the corn rustling as though someone was lurking within it. Recognizing it was in the opposite direction of Mitch's path, I rapidly descended the ladder and hurried towards him. Arriving at Mitch's side, panting heavily after sprinting through the cornfield for about a minute, I hastily recounted the chilling encounter. Between gasps of air, I described the terrifying situation to him. Mitch, in return, revealed that he too had heard the spine-chilling scream as he approached. We both agreed that it would be best to vacate the area, unwilling to engage with whoever or whatever might be causing such distressing disturbances. But I had to do one thing first. I needed to go back and get my bag and books. Mitch agreed he would accompany me back, and we would make it quick. So we made our way back to the treehouse, both on high alert, walking through the corn as it was growing darker by the moment. With relief, we encountered no disturbances during our return. As I ascended the ladder, Mitch diligently illuminated the surroundings with his flashlight. However, upon entering the treehouse, my heart sank as I found a middle-aged woman seated in one of our chairs. Her straggly short black hair and grimy blood-stained attire immediately sent shivers down my spine as she stared intently at my book. Quickly, her gaze shifted to me, and her eyes met. While mine widened in terror, hers remained eerily calm and lifeless. In a moment of sheer horror, I let out a piercing scream. As my voice echoed through the stillness of the night, she responded with an increasingly sinister shriek, raising a small knife in her right hand. With an adrenaline-fueled burst of energy, I descended from the treehouse, and Mitch and I raced away from the terrifying encounter with the crazed woman, eager to leave her behind. In my haste, the importance of my books paled in comparison to the overwhelming desire to reach the sanctuary of home. In a matter of minutes, we reached the spot where we typically parked our bikes, swiftly departing. Throughout the ride to my house, we chatted about the unsettling encounter, transforming our initial panic and fear into excitement and bewilderment. Mitch and I opted to keep the unsettling encounter to ourselves, refraining from discussing it with our parents and confiding mainly to our close friends. We revisited the treehouse only a few times thereafter, usually when we were in the company of others, and luckily, I managed to retrieve my books on one of those occasions. The dreadful woman never reappeared, and the location where the treehouse once stood had been transformed into an interstate, becoming little more than a distant memory. Despite this, the echoes of her terrifying screams persist, haunting me whenever I find myself alone, a reminder that the experience will forever linger in my mind. At the age of 19, I worked at a nearby Payless Shoes outlet during the summer break from college in my hometown. I eagerly took on extra hours, frequently finding myself closing the store and staying late. While wrapping up for the night on a Saturday evening and anticipating some relaxation at home, my attention was drawn to a yellow rusted truck in the parking lot outside the store. It seemed to have been there for the past hour or so, parked directly next to my car, which struck me as unusual given the rest of the lot was completely empty. Attempting to peer into the truck for any signs of activity proved challenging in the dim lighting. With the closing procedures completed and yearning to depart, I couldn't shake a slight unease about approaching my car. However, with the time nearing 10 p.m., I was more than ready to leave. Having switched off the store lights and secured the door behind me, I was startled when the truck suddenly came to life, its bright headlights illuminating me. As I turned to head towards my car, I instinctively lifted my hand to shield my eyes from the blinding headlights, feeling the urge to give the middle finger to the driver, but hesitating out of fear of their potential reaction. Hastening my steps, I hurried over to my car, maintaining my hand over my eyes to lessen the glare. As I fumbled with my keys, attempting to unlock my car door, my heart leaped out of my chest as the truck unleashed a deafening, loud, and prolonged engine rev, causing me to drop my keys. I focused exclusively on getting my keys and unlocking my door, making sure not to make any eye contact with the individual I glimpsed sitting in the truck through my peripheral vision. From what little I saw, it seemed his eyes were fixed squarely on me. After opening my car door and getting in, I immediately turned the ignition to start the car. But just before doing so, I glanced at the man, though his face concealed by shadow. I met his gaze head on and gave him the finger with an irritated expression. Much to my frustration, the engine failed to start. Despite repeatedly turning the keys, there was no response. No power, no sound. A sinking feeling overwhelmed me, as I suspected the man might have tampered with my vehicle. With the man loudly revving his engine in a steady rhythm again, I reached for my cell phone in my right pocket to dial my house. As I held on, listening to his relentless engine and now occasional long horns, tears began to edge their way into my eyes, fear pervading every part of me. It took a few rings before my call was directed to the answering machine, where I quickly left a message tinged with panic. Immediately after, the man began to lower his window and ominously call out, "Hey honey, you in trouble?" laughing with a sinister voice afterwards. His speech was noticeably slurred, giving the impression of drunkenness and significantly raising my level of alarm. His voice grew louder with each slurred insult as my trembling hands frantically searched for another contact to call for help. Suddenly, the truck door swung open, and the drunken creep stepped out. I glanced towards the passenger window as he began tugging at the door handle. I yelled at him to leave, but he persisted, his efforts to gain entry growing more forceful. To my utter shock, my phone buzzed with a call from my dad just then. Answering it, the man escalated his efforts, now hammering on the passenger window. Hearing my dad's voice made me break down in tears as I frantically explained what was happening. He immediately responded that he was coming. Right after, I hung up and started searching for something in my car to defend myself with. Amid the man's persistent banging on the window, another car entered the lot, causing the man to retreat back into his vehicle. He quickly sped away from the parking lot, his tires screeching and engine roaring loudly, breaking the night silence as he drove off at high speed. I watched intently, silently hoping the police would catch sight of him. But all I could do was listen as the sound of his engine gradually disappeared in the distance. Despite still feeling rattled, a burst of relief flooded over me as I realized he was now far from harm's reach. I waited for my dad, who arrived shortly after, and together we headed home, informing the police about the situation. Throughout the night, as I lay in bed trying to shake off the terrifying memories, my heart would quicken with each passing headlight outside my home, casting a soft glow in my bedroom as they passed. At times, it seemed like I could hear the distinct rev of that old truck engine, as if the man was still lurking nearby. I couldn't shake the feeling that I might come face to face with him again, although it could have been just my imagination playing eerie tricks on me. My name is Andrew. I was 17 years old living in Miller, South Dakota that late May night in 1991. My friends and I set out for what we anticipated to be an ordinary weekend night. Little did we know, that particular evening would transform into the most chilling encounter of my life. It was Friday evening around 10 p.m. My pals Alex, Eric, AJ, and I were hanging out indoors, engaged in playing Super Nintendo games and watching movies. When we realized we were out of drinks and snacks, Alex and I made the decision to head to the store. I kind of wanted some fresh air anyway. We'd been sitting inside for the past several hours. So we exited and made our way. In the small town of Miller, reaching any place on foot didn't require much time. Alex and I began our stroll towards the store, discussing the movie we had recently watched and brainstorming ideas for the remainder of the night. It was fairly late already, but it's the weekend, so it's pretty common for us to hang out well past midnight. Upon reaching the store, we grabbed some bottles of soda along with a selection of different snacks. Just outside the store, we both popped a soda and made our way back. On our return back to AJ's house, we planned to make a quick stop at another friend's place. Our friend Tim would usually hook us up with cigarettes when needed, as he was old enough to buy them. Approaching his house, we knocked on the door. While waiting, I glanced to my left and noticed something unusual. It appeared as though someone was standing on a large storage shed attached to a mill yard across the street. Curious, I wondered why someone would be up there. "Hey Alex, take a look at that," I said, tapping on his shoulder and pointing to the top of the shed. He also acknowledged it. Shortly after, the man faded into darkness. Tim then opened the door and stepped outside with us. We moved into the shadows, and he handed us some cigarettes and, to our surprise, a bottle of vodka he had managed to secure for us. We exchanged some money. "Do you want to chill tonight?" I asked Tim. He explained that he was a bit tired and planned to stay in. We headed back to AJ's to reunite with the boys. The anticipation of having a bottle of booze for the night had us buzzing with excitement. While aware that we were underage and perhaps shouldn't be drinking and smoking, the lack of anything to do in our town as teenagers left us seeking thrills wherever we could find them. Just before reaching AJ's, Alex spotted something in the sky just as we both heard a fairly loud shriek. "Hey, did you see that?" he asked, pointing up to the vast black emptiness above. I don't see anything. But did you hear that noise? I responded. Yeah, I heard that. It looked like a giant bird or bat, he explained. I scanned the sky but didn't see anything. Whatever, he said, dismissing it casually. We met back with the boys, still occupied with Street Fighter. Party time, guys, Alex announced upon entering the room. Eric and AJ swiftly put down their controllers and were excited about our unexpected gift. Alex zipped open his backpack to reveal the bottle of vodka. Oh, hell yeah, AJ and Eric both said with excitement. We thought it would be sort of dull to simply hang out indoors all night, especially with such perfect weather. So AJ grabbed his backpack as well. We stuffed both backpacks with what we'll need for our adventure. All right, let's go, boys, AJ said as he zipped up the backpack. We turned off the TV, the lights, then headed out. Not too far from AJ's stands an aging mill plant equipped with tall silos and such. We chose to walk along the train tracks that serviced the mill. Though it would be really dark, it helps conceal the fact that we're drinking. The glow of the well-lit moon did aid in seeing a bit. As we neared the tracks, gearing up for our walk, we thought it was a fitting moment to top off our soda bottles with vodka. Subsequently, we sparked up a few cigarettes and proceeded down the tracks. During strolls like these, our conversations predominantly revolved around high school experiences and girls, typical chatter for kids our age. The night remained remarkably quiet, with only the faint hum of distant cars, usual chirping night critters, and the occasional dog barks breaking the silence. What's that up there? Eric inquired, directing our attention to something perched on top of a tall mill silo. We all turned our gaze, remembering how earlier, Alex and I had observed someone standing on one of the nearby sheds. All of a sudden, the shape atop the structure enlarged. It seemed to be crouching and then straightened up, revealing a towering, ominous figure that looked to be more than 8 feet tall. Holy crap, seriously? What is that? AJ questioned. We all paused for a moment to observe. There's no way that's a person, Eric said quietly. It looks like what I saw earlier, I replied, and just as I had said that, the figure darted straight up into the air and disappeared. Dude, we're not that drunk already, are we? AJ remarked. We shared a laugh, but I couldn't help but feel incredibly creeped out by that thing. Continuing our aimless journey along the tracks, we began to pick up faint sounds of a train in the distance. Looks like a train is coming, remarked Alex. AJ then moved to the side of the track opposite of the town. We followed. Is it just me, or is that a blood moon? Eric inquired while pointing upwards. Oh, cool. I didn't know there was one tonight, I responded. It certainly looked like a blood moon, radiating a distinct red hue. Just moments later, a long, piercing sound startled all of us. That was not the train, AJ states. About 100 yards away, Alex observed 2 small red lights emerging from the trees ahead. Dude, those look like eyes, Alex said. We were definitely feeling creeped out now. It appeared there was someone staring at us in the trees just ahead. It's that thing from earlier, AJ added. With the train quickly approaching, we continued to walk slowly towards the lights. Guys, I'm not feeling good about this, Eric voiced his concern. Agreed. Let's go this way, I proposed, gesturing back towards the dimly lit town and away from the mysterious figure. Suddenly, the figure seemed to be advancing towards us. Feeling a sense of urgency, we hastened our walking pace to create more distance between. Another loud shriek echoed, heightening our unease. Eric began shouting profanities, and we all broke into a run. The train, seconds away, was on the verge of becoming a barrier between us and the approaching entity. Keep running, guys, Alex's shout urged us on. The train horns blared as it passed. With my heart now racing, We continued running for a brief moment before regathering to catch our breath. Our attention shifted to the passing train, and a collective sigh of relief escaped us. However, confusion clouded our thoughts. What in the world was that, we thought? Without wasting time, we retraced our steps back to AJ's, keeping a vigilant eye out for any signs of that mysterious entity. Fortunately, we reached AJ's place without any more unexpected encounters. Eric seemed noticeably more agitated than the rest of us, appearing quieter and lost in his thoughts. The three of us engaged in conversation, discussing the sights and sounds we had experienced, contemplating how to articulate what we had witnessed. We had refrained from drinking for a while, and the buzz was gradually wearing off. Aside from Eric, the rest of us decided to spend the night at AJ's. Eric, who lived in an even smaller town a few minutes away by car, had called his parents to come and get him. We said our goodnights to Eric upon the arrival of his parents, and then proceeded to put on a movie before turning in for the night. This is where the narrative takes an unexpected turn. The following day, we received alarming news that Eric had been taken to the hospital. Reportedly, his index finger was cleanly severed and nowhere to be found. His family suspected he was concealing the truth, fearing to disclose an incident from the previous night to his parents. Honestly, we were all stunned upon learning this. We clarified that we had no knowledge of Eric's injury. Later on, during a discussion with Eric, he shared that the mysterious figure we had witnessed that night had revisited him at home. Upon awakening, he found it gazing at him with those red eyes, hovering just above his bed. It was at that moment he realized there was a pool of blood and his finger was gone. Then the pain settled in, and before comprehending the moment, the figure was gone. Alex, AJ, and I believed Eric's story. The residual effects of that night have burned in me with ongoing post-traumatic stress, prompting me to wonder if I will ever encounter that entity again. Although over 30 years have elapsed, the memory of that dark, shadowy figure, now referred to by my friends and I as the Raven Man, continues to haunt me to this day.